Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet. 10 games tonight in the National Hockey League, so we'll do a preview as well. But first off, we're going to discuss an extension. Jake Evans has come to a contract extension agreement with the Montreal Canadiens. I think this is a perfectly fine number for Evans. It is a 4-year extension. The cap hit $2.85 million. With the season that Evans was having, I really didn't think that Montreal trading him would make any sense. It works for him in Montreal. I don't know if it would work as well somewhere else. And yeah, Evans has been excellent for Montreal this year. So $2.85 million cap hit, I think is totally reasonable. Then there's the three-way deal this morning that I've gone over 4 different ways it's written out. I think I got everything right. I'm pretty sure I get everything right. So, because there's a few that show it a little different. So, the Oilers get Trent Frederic, and apparently they're paying 25% of the salary cap hit on Frederic, which is $575,000. So the cap hit on Trent Frederic for the Oilers is less than a minimal cap hit. Trent Frederic this year in Boston, 57 games, 8 goals, 7 assists, 15 points. He's a good third/fourth liner at this point, not putting up goals and assists the way that he has in recent seasons as well. He is a guy who can drop the gloves. He has the ability to throw some hits out there. I think Oiler fans are going to be happy. Max Jones, part of this deal as well. He's only played 7 games for Boston this year. No points. He is a depth player only, of course. Jones was a first-round draft pick way back when, but at this point he is, he's a fill-in, a fourth-line guy. But it's more depth for the Oilers, right? Also, they acquired the rights to Peter Hauser, a right winger who was a number 141 pick in 2022. So that's another one going to Edmonton. And as I've learned in recent seasons, guys who get mentioned that we haven't heard of doesn't mean they don't end up becoming National Hockey League players. Now, on the other side is Boston, but here's New Jersey. Now, New Jersey facilitates the deal, and they do this in order to, get another player for free. Kind of, sort of, but not really, because you're using some cap space. But it is reported that New Jersey are still going to be buyers at the deadline. So New Jersey retains 50% on Frederic. I've also heard that Boston retains 50% on Frederic. That's how the cap hit for Frederic's $575,000 for the Oilers. How it works out is it's 50% retained by Frederic, trading him to New Jersey. New Jersey retains 50% of the remaining, so it's 25% of the contract. And so it leaves the Oilers just having to worry about 25%. So pretty well done by the Oilers here, I think. Now, on the Boston side, they get Max Wanner, a defenseman, who was a number 212 pick back in 2021. As mentioned, they retain 50% on Frederic. They get a second-round pick in 2025, which was the St. Louis Blues second-round pick. And they get a 2026 fourth-round pick as well. So it's an interesting 3-way deal. I do think that at this point, the Oilers get the best player in the trade. And we'll see how Boston does with the draft picks and what further moves they make. And for New Jersey, they get not just the 50% retention, they get Shane LaChance, an undrafted pick, drafted 186th overall in 2021. He's a left winger. Keep in mind that we're getting to that point where draft picks that are unsigned can become free agents. So teams are going to be dealing these unsigned, like unsigned draft picks, because they're going to lose them for nothing if they don't sign them anyways. So another team gets a chance to negotiate with them and maybe get their pen on paper and get them signed to a contract. So there's the 3-way deal. As I understand it, I apologize if it's not 100%, but again, there were a bunch of different sources. I'm like, well, this makes the most sense, and there you go. All right, Brad Marchand is week to week for Boston. So they trade Frederic. And Frederic's not healthy anyways, so there's that aspect of it as well. I haven't heard when he's coming back. I don't think he's that far out, though. But Marchand's week to week, so my rule with that is 2 weeks at least for those ones. And it means he won't play again before the trade deadline. I'd honestly be very surprised if Boston trades Marchand. But if they decide to do so, there will be no shortage of teams willing to take Marchand on. Well, there's a lot of fans who talk about how Marchand plays, he's the dirtiest player ever, ban him from the game, all this kind of stuff. When he becomes available, if he becomes available, a lot of teams are going to be very interested in picking up Marchand because they know what he can do in the playoffs. and they know how he can play and what he brings to the team. The only time Marchand seems to hurt Boston is when they're losing anyways, and his temperament kind of gets the better of him. New Jersey news here on the board as well. They're still awaiting test results on Jack Hughes. The longer these take, the worse that I assume it's going to be. It could very well be season ending. At the very least, I would think he'd be out until the playoffs. We'll see what happens with New Jersey. But as previously mentioned, they're expected to be buyers. They were facilitators of this deal between Boston and Edmonton, and they're going to need to add at least a top 6 forward. While Shane Lachance may end up being a very good NHL player, we don't know. Unlikely that he's going to come in and save New Jersey between now and the end of the season. You never know. I mean, there have been heroic stories told before in the National Hockey League. Seattle, looking to trade Brandon Tanev. Pierre LeBrun's reporting that they're willing to eat 50% of Tanev's $3.5 million cap hit to get a trade done. There may very well be a facilitator in that trade as well. So then the team on the other end only pays 25% of the cap. And I've talked before about, I understand that it's not really cheating the cap, but it kind of feels like it's cheating the cap. That you have a third party that's paying out a salary on a player that never actually played for them at all. And it's just, they're paying it so that another team doesn't have to worry about going over the cap. It's interesting. So anyways, yeah, we'll see how many three-way deals we get between now and the deadline, but we could get a few, and they may require some deciphering about, wait, who went who for what? Who went where? What happened? All right, now we'll get into the preview portion of this morning's program. It's still morning here. So we've got 10 games tonight in the National Hockey League, 5 of them starting at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, 1.5 an hour later, 1.5 an hour later, and then 3 later starts. So, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start, Nashville's in Boston. The Preds, 21-32-7 on the season. They're 3-7 over their last 10. They're 16 points out of the playoffs. Don't think they're making it. Boston, 28-26-8 overall. They're 3-5-2 over their last 10. So they're only 2 points out of the playoffs, but I believe they've played one extra game above teams they're chasing. It just, the math and the fact they're 3-5-2 in their last 10, now they're going to be without Marchand. They're already without McAvoy, without Hampus Lindholm. Don Sweeney's smartest choice here would be to, not worry about this season and try to rearm for next season. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start between San Jose and Buffalo. I know, I'm excited too. San Jose 16-37-6 on the season. They're 2-5-3 coming off of a victory in Toronto last night. 24 points separating them from the playoffs. Hey now, ain't not technically eliminated from the playoffs as of yet, so they're still in this. If they win every game between now and the end of the season, they'll still miss the playoffs. Buffalo 24-29-6 on the season, 6-3-1 in their last 10. They are 12 points back of a playoff spot in the East. And I can't really dress that up. It's not there. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start between Carolina and Detroit. This one should be interesting. Carolina 35-22-4 overall. They're 4-6 in their last 10. They're 2 points clear New Jersey, as both of these teams are having their ups and downs recently. Detroit 30-24-6. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10. They need to take those back-to-back games against Columbus, get some amnesia from them, forget they ever happened, because they're tied with New York for that final playoff spot in the East. They're above the playoff line right now. They have the tiebreaker on New York, but they need to win, and they need to win a lot, I think, between now and the end of the season, because teams are improving. And I think Rangers are one of those teams. So, we'll see how things go for Detroit tonight at home against Carolina. That may end up being the best game tonight. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start. Columbus in Tampa against the Lightning. These teams have had some interesting, of course, history in playoff scenarios. Now they're going to have an interesting night in the regular season, because for Columbus, they are 30-22-8 overall. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10. They're 2 points ahead of Detroit, but that also means they're only 2 points ahead of the playoff line. For Tampa, 35-21-4 record. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10, which has helped get them really well ahead of that playoff line. They don't have to worry about that. And Tampa Bay 5 points behind Florida after that win by the Panthers last night against Tampa in regulation. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start between Calgary and Philly. The Flames 28-23-9. They're 3-5-2 in their last 10, and they have 1 goal in their last 3 games. They did get a point in that one against Carolina, though. They are tied with Vancouver for that last playoff spot in the West. Vancouver idle tonight. Philadelphia 27-26-8 overall. They're 4-4-2 in their last 10. They're 4 points back of a playoff spot. This game here may end up being scoreless into overtime, maybe into a shootout. Both teams have really good, solid structure to their game. Calgary has excellent goaltending. Philadelphia is pretty good at shot suppression at this point in the season, so it may end up being kind of a real defensive... See, now that I've said it, now it'll be like an 80s game with 10 goals plus, but I don't think so. Unless Calgary can score a couple early and then force Philadelphia to change up how they're playing things. 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific start between Winnipeg and the Islanders. So the Jets, 42-15-4 overall. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. They're 8 points ahead of Dallas atop the division. The Islanders, 27-26-7 overall. They're 4-6 in their last 10. They are 5 points back of that final playoff spot in the East, so they need to start winning. 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific start. New Jersey's in Dallas. New Jersey, 33-23-6 on the season, 5-5 in their last 10. 4 points ahead of Columbus. So while Columbus is worried about staying out of the playoff line, they can also look above them and say, you know what? Maybe we can catch New Jersey. On the Dallas side, they're 39-19-2 overall. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. They're 6 points ahead of Minnesota. So what we're seeing in the Central, you've got Winnipeg 8 points ahead of Dallas. Dallas 6 points ahead of Minnesota. Things are starting to settle out pretty well here. It looks like Dallas very likely gets second in the division, and Winnipeg's been first in the division the whole season. Why change that now? Pittsburgh is in Colorado tonight. That starts at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. Pittsburgh, 24-29-10. They're 3-5-2 in their last 10. They're 8 points back of a playoff spot, and it's been bad lately. On the Colorado side, they're 35-24-2. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They're 7 points ahead of Calgary. So they're the number one wild card, but they're close to Minnesota, and they don't really have to worry about the playoff line. Colorado's fine. They're well ahead of that, and with a win tonight against Pittsburgh, maybe they get that little bit closer to Minnesota. We'll talk about that. 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific start between Anaheim in Edmonton against the Oilers. Anaheim 26-26-7 overall. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10. They're 6 points back of a playoff spot. It'd be a shame if they end up getting really close and we look back on that game they lost against Chicago and say, that might have been an Anaheim season. Edmonton 35-21-4 overall, but they're 3-6-1 in their last 10. Very happy to be home. They're 4 points behind Vegas now for the top spot in the Pacific Division. And then at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific, the Minnesota Wild in Seattle against the Kraken. Minnesota 35-22-4 overall. They're 5-5 in their last 10. Minnesota's 2 points ahead of Colorado in that third spot. So they are not home and cooled in that third spot at all. Whereas Seattle 26-31-4 overall. They're 4-5-1 in their last 10 games. And they're 9 points back of a playoff spot. Seattle's in rebuild mode, as you can see here, with Tanev being on the market as an pending unrestricted free agent, or at the very least, maybe I shouldn't say rebuild, just retool, rearm, that kind of thing. So at any rate, there you go. Let me know your picks for tonight's games. Let me know your thoughts on these topics on the board. As always, hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for watching. We are 3 days away from the trade deadline. I do expect things to get busier, but a lot of the big names, it feels like, are already off the board. So we'll see how many more big names end up being off the board before Friday. Maybe it's just going to be a hangout live stream on Friday. Either way, that is at 10 a.m. my time, which is 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm aware that TSN and Sportsnet are both going to be on at ridiculously early times by my standard. I've never really quite understood why they do 7 hours or 8 hours of trade deadline coverage, especially since the first few hours are normally just them sitting there staring at the wall and figuring out things to talk about and having little skits. It's just kind of weird. Anyways, thank you guys so much for all your support. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much as always. I will talk to you again soon.